What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Nickel City Rush Hour. We got a good one for you tonight. We're going to be talking with some outsiders on what they think about Sean McDermott. Is he enough to get the Bills over the hurdle? We're going to talk about get the perspective from some of the insiders here. We got Timmy Corks, born and raised in Buffalo, big Bills fan. He actually does our Sabres Edge show on Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Check it out if you're a hockey fan or a Sabre fan. And then also, my co host is always Mr. Jake Podger, also born and raised in Buffalo, as well as myself. Jake's about 5 minutes from the stadium. So we're going to get their perspectives. I haven't heard them yet, so this will be interesting tonight. And then, of course, we got the outsiders. We got Mr. Chris Caldwell, born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Huge fan of the Baltimore Ravens, who are in the AFC Championship game this weekend. And, I'm happy to have him. I was hoping that Rick would join us as well. Rick is somebody who was also born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. And, they have a different perspective on their head coach, which I think relates to what we're going to talk about with Sean McDermott. So I'm super to have you, Chris. Thanks for joining us tonight. And then, of course, you can see he's already sporting his Ravens gear. We're going to get into that Raven Chief matchup a little bit later. Also joining us is Mr. Tony Altieri, the 5-6 apologist. He does our DFS golf show you never know with those guys. Sometimes it's Tuesday, sometimes it's Wednesday. They're always flexing their schedules, so you just never know, but they do some great golf content. Now, Tony is kind of grew up with a football family. His dad and his brother are coaches, high school, high level, and I'm talking state championship type coaches. And I think Tony's helped them out here and there. And then he went to Boise State and played for the Boise State Broncos from 1999 to 2002. Yes, I know that, Tony. And by the way, in your senior year, 5 sacks, my friends. He was a defensive lineman for Boise State. And at least that's what the profile
Let's go,
says.
baby.
And he pretty much fantastic year in the senior year. He was also super excited for us when we drafted Khalil Shakir, because he's like, you guys got a good one in this young kid, and that turned out to be true. Tony, you're half the man you used to be. Yeah, and I mean that literally. You were 5'10", 274 back in the day, and now you're much slimmer. You can be on the cover of GQ. So welcome, my friend. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Mike. I mean, my playing weight was actually 296 my senior year, so I appreciate the slim down 274. But I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk football. I'm so used to talking golf with Rick, so it's nice to go back to the roots. And obviously, being on the channel and listening to you and Jake and the rest of the crew talk about the Bills, I'm excited to be here. Listen to Chris every week on the Fantasy Football Show. So I'm just excited to be a part of the football crew. Takes me back. You mentioned it. Both brothers coach. The second oldest brother, Mike, he actually won Coach of the Year in Idaho this year as State Coach of the Year. So, we're a football family. So I'm excited to talk football tonight.
Yeah, Tony has no allegiance to any team. So that's unique about him. But the craziest thing, and I love to bring this up every time we're talking football, he refuses to wear another man's jersey. And Tony, remind us again why that is, please.
Here's the thing. Anybody that's played the sport, anybody that's walked on the field, and I have mad respect for Jake because Jake's been there. Like, Jake's played similar level that I played. And I just, to me, it takes a lot to do that. I mean, the commitment that it takes to be on the field. And so I honor that by not misrepresenting myself as someone who has been at the same level as many of the guys in the NFL. And I'm not saying that fans are misrepresenting themselves, but I would say I have that much respect for the position. That I also think and Jake knows this, it's a beta move. Like, I don't need to be alpha, but I don't need to advertise that I'm beta. Like, I refuse to advertise it. I'm a dad of 2 girls. I wear my Hey Dudes. I'm sweats on the weekend. No jerseys for me. That's where I draw the line.
That's fair, Tony. I love that. Love that. Sorry, I always have to bring it up.
I got one rebuttal, Tony.
Yeah.
A true alpha knows when he is being a beta, and I will gladly admit that I am a beta. The biggest – listen.
No.
The biggest beta in the world when I'm wearing that Reggie Gilliam jersey. Because I'll tell you what, that dude would put me in a freaking pretzel. That guy would absolutely smoke me if I got out on the field with him and went head to head. And I'll admit it. It's okay. It's okay. I'm good with it.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'll
Tony,
agree with
I
you.
thought-
I think the most alpha move is admitting you're a beta. I think that
Yeah,
is the most
that's right.
alpha move.
That's right.
I thought of you last weekend, Tony. It was dangerously cold in Baltimore. So all I could think about, all morning is how many layers am I going to wear, clothes, this and that. I get dressed, my wife's going to drive me down to the stadium, and then I get there and I'm like all bundled up, looking like the kid from A Christmas Story, you can barely move and stuff. And I'm like, I forgot my damn jersey to put over my coat. I guess I'm Tony today.
Now the best move is like full 6 layers parka and then jersey just stretched over the top of the parka. Like that's that's the true beta move in cold weather.
Listen, in Buffalo, you got to actually buy like a XXX jersey so you can put a jersey over all 10 of your layers when you go to a game in the wintertime. It's pretty serious
Either
stuff.
that or jump through a table that's on fire. Like I've watched
one of
that
the two.
multiple times this week. That's like the new jam in Buffalo.
That's right. Yeah.
By the way, if you've ever watched the Kelsey podcast, Jason and Travis, I listened to it on the way to work today. Funny because they were talking about Jason's experience with the Bills Mafia, and he loved it. He was all for it. He had nothing but good things to say. It was hysterical. He was out there taking shots from a bowling ball. He was taking it. He said he wanted to take his shirt off at the tailgate, but he didn't get an opportunity. So that's why when he was in the box, he took his shirt off. He jumped outside the box, was screaming. He was helping young kids try to meet Taylor Swift. It was pretty cool. If you get a chance, check it out. It was funny. They're both respectful. Even Travis was very respectful about the game. So pretty cool little pod there if you get a chance. I want to say hi to, look, we signed up. I was in the office today, and we have a couple techs out there working that normally don't work at our facility. And Jose and Bobby, I want to say hi to you guys. I took them out to lunch, and I signed them up. I said, get your phones out there, Nickel City Mafia, and there they are. Good to see you, Jose and Bobby. Thanks for joining us. And Brett's out there, Go Bills Podcast. Thank you very much. So, guys, let's get into it. So, since the loss, a lot of people, insiders, outsiders, they've been saying Bills need to move on from Sean McDermott. He's peaked. We're not going to go any further with this guy. And I'm going to reserve my opinion until after I hear from the outsiders first. But let me just set the stage from Sean McDermott's coaching career with the Bills so far. This is his 7th season with the Bills. Started in 2017. He was hired about 3 months before the draft. He drafted with a GM that had 1 foot out the door. Doug Whaley, I think was his name. And the next year is when Bean joined. They actually had a pretty good draft. And I don't know if you guys know this. In 2017, they had an opportunity to get Patrick Mahomes with the number 10 pick. Again, when McDermott was asked why didn't they go after him, they already had a serviceable quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. They only had 3 months to really get ready for the draft. So there wasn't a lot of time. And honestly, a lot of people misevaluated Pat Mahomes. So the Chiefs got him. The Bills traded down. They got the Chiefs' first-round pick in 2018, which was, I think it was the number 22nd pick. And they took Mahomes. In 2018, the Bills drafted Josh Allen at number 7. And then with that 22nd pick, we moved up. I forget to where, and we drafted Tremaine Edmonds. 18, yeah. 22 to 18, we took Tremaine Edmonds. But Sean McDermott, 7 years. First year, he took us, the drought was broken, right? First year as the head coach, the drought was broken, and we lost to the Jaguars in the 2017 wildcard matchup. 2018 was when Josh Allen joined the team. We didn't make the playoffs that year. The following year, we lost to the Texans. We got back into the playoffs, lost to the Texans in the wild card matchup. In 2020, we went to the AFC Championship and lost to Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes. He's just a nightmare for us, Bills Mafia. The next year, we lost in the divisional round to the Chiefs once again, the infamous 13-second game. Last year we lost to the Bengals in the divisional round. A lot went on. We had the Damar Hamlin situation. We had the blizzard. We even had to play a home game in Detroit. So much was going on last year. I felt the team was just worn out by the time they played the Bengals there and lost that game. And then, of course, this year, again, knocked out in the divisional round to the Chiefs. So a lot of people saying he should be, they're calling for his job. I want to start with Chris on this because, Chris, you and Rick are perfect for this conversation. I know Rick couldn't join us tonight, but you have John Harbaugh. Harbaugh won you guys a Super Bowl in 2012. And I think it took him 4 or 5 years to win his first Super Bowl when he joined the Ravens. But he won it in 2012. But since then, 11 years have gone by and nothing. And I know Rick has been kind of calling for his head, calling for his job. Time to move on. Rick's of this opinion, and a lot of people are, that you need to have an offensive-minded coach these days. You just need to. Now, I know that Harbaugh is not considered that. He's kind of considered a neutral because his experience was with special teams before he became a head coach. He wasn't a defensive coordinator, wasn't an offensive coordinator. But you kind of are on the other side of it. You always kind of stand up for him. You're not ready to part ways. So let me start with you on your view of McDermott, and should the Bills part with him? Are you a believer that, hey, it's been 7 years and you got 6 years of Josh Allen and you haven't gotten over the hump yet? Should we move on?
Yeah, so I'll just say, you nailed it. I'm on the more patient side of the John Harbaugh disagreement. I'd say Baltimore's pretty split on Harbaugh. But I think a head coach can be, there's definitely not just one picture of a head coach, right? To me, John Harbaugh is, I call him like a project manager, right? I mean, he's the face of the organization. He knows the right things to say. He's a good motivator. The players seem to stick up for him. He's completely not an X's and O's kind of guy, and that's okay, right? I think that you should be patient with McDermott. I mean, he's got you 5 playoff wins in the last 4 years. 3 of those losses, you were booted by the same team. I would call 2 of those losses just absolute heartbreaker, games that the Bills should have won. I mean, the NFL always comes down to a matter of plays, not so I don't know. I think that Buffalo should employ some patience here. You have a great quarterback. I mean, last year you went through it all, like you said, with the weather and Hamlin and everything. This year it came down to essentially 1 or 2 plays. If it were me, I would not want to overreact. I think that your team still plays hard for him. I'd even say like the Bills slightly outkicked their coverage this year. So I think he did a relatively good job this year coaching with what he had left. You had a lot of injuries, at receiver, on defense. So I think that, I actually give him B plus coaching grade for this year. So tell me why I'm wrong. I'm really interested to see your guys' point of view. But no, I'm totally not with Rick, and I do wish he could be here. I don't think you need the whiz kid offensive mind at head coach. And I'll remind Rick every time he says this that he was begging for the Ravens to hire Brandon Staley over and fire John Harbaugh. Look how that turned out. So sometimes you don't know what you got till it's gone. And I would keep McDermott around for another year or 2.
Yeah, I haven't heard the other 2 guys, the insiders here, Mr. Timmy's take and Jake's take. Kind of heard Jake because we have a group chat. But it's hard to win a Super Bowl, guys. That's why there's 12 teams that still have not won a Super Bowl. That's over 1/3 of the teams in the NFL. It is super hard. And I mean, I have a lot of data. I'm not going to tell you it all. I'll share it over the course of this conversation. But take Andy Reid, for example. 21 years of coaching before he got his first Super Bowl. And he had some damn good teams with the Eagles. He had Donovan McNabb at the helm. He actually went to a Super Bowl with the Eagles. and lost to what? A defensive-minded coach, Bill Belichick, arguably the best defensive-minded coach ever. I don't even think it's arguably the best defensive-minded coach ever. He also had a shot in Pat Mahomes' second season. He played the Patriots in the AFC Championship game and lost again to a defensive-minded coach. And then they finally got their first Super Bowl of the year. But 21 years for a guy that everyone, and again, Andy Reid, love him, likable guy, great offensive minded coach, but didn't get it done for 21 years, guys. So I'll stop there for now. I have more information to share. Yeah, go ahead.
What I meant to end on and kind of ask back to you guys for you to think about is how do you define success, right? So I can't stand when people say, oh, well, he hasn't won a Super Bowl. I get it. Like you said, 1 out of 32 teams every year wins a Super Bowl. If that's the only definition that you have for success, I think the bar is just too high because I don't want to say it's luck involved, but it comes down to one play or two plays every year, no matter what. Okay, the Ravens won a Super Bowl with John Harbaugh. I don't even think they deserved to win that year. The Mile High Miracle, probably one of the luckiest plays of all time. We didn't deserve to even make the AFC Championship game that year. So, but now John Harbaugh has a Super Bowl in his resume. So if Tyler Bass makes that kick, are we even talking about this? Maybe the Bills win that game. If they don't blow the 13-second game, we're definitely not talking about this, right? So more often than not, when things come down to one play or two plays, I would just be careful not to overjudge.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you probably shouldn't have won if you hadn't, conspiracy has it that you guys had someone who cut the wire, cut the power, delayed the game.
Didn't.
So
San Francisco.
I don't know. But let me go to you, Timmy, because I haven't heard your takes yet. And to Chris's question of what's your criteria for success, and let me throw it to you for that, and your take on Mr. McDermott.
Yeah. So my take's gonna be different from my Sabres take, where I think the Sabres should fire Don Granato as their coach. When it comes to Sean McDermott, I really don't think they should fire this coach at all. I mean, I've lived through 17 years of a drought. That was my whole entire Bills fandom. And we finally have a coach that actually, not only has he brought the team to the playoffs, but he also still has, the attention of the team. And you just think back to the season when they were 6-6, everyone was calling for his head. No one actually turned on him. Everyone still stood up for Sean, and they kept playing for him, and they finished out the season. What was it? 7 wins in a row. So the thought that, people just want immediate change and want immediate fixes, and they think that's going to be the difference that's going to happen for this team. I'm not a fan of the offensive-minded head coach at all, to be totally honest with you. I like what Chris said. I want a game manager type of coach, and Sean could be that. And there's some changes that he'll have to make, whereas he's going to have to hand the reins over for the defensive side of the ball to somebody else, preferably an outsider, just to get a new view or a different perspective on the defense. And when it comes to offense, they're going to go through the process of interviewing offensive coordinators, probably end up with Joe Brady. But there's a lot of things that came into play throughout the season too. And at the end of the year, what are we talking about right now? What do the Sabres need? Or not the Sabres. What do the Bills need? And they said it in the end of year press conference. They need explosive players on the other side of the ball. They have one player, and it's the face of their franchise, and that's Josh Allen, who carried that team towards the end. And I agree with that. You need to get more players out there. You need to give someone else a chance to, perform in this offense and help Josh out, because they've been coming back with the same team for the past, 3 to 4 years. I really feel like this is a Bean problem more than it is a McDermott problem. And that's kind of where I'm thinking right now. We'll discuss more, but yeah, I think McDermott should be a coach that stays. I don't think his job should be on the line right now.
Yeah, I love that take. So let me throw it over to Jake, because Jake, just in your little circle, your circle of friends, you got Timmy here in support of McDermott. You got Zach, who's been blowing up the channel saying he's done. He's done with them. I'd love to hear what Ian's thinking and then get your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think I'm very conflicted because I do have a lot of people coming at me with different takes, but I really do like what you guys said. The grass, first off, the grass is not always greener, right? I mean, be careful what you wish for. It took us 17 freaking seasons to even get there. And I get it. You can't keep holding it to that standard like, oh, just getting to the dance is enough. But I will say this year in particular, I think if the Bills don't make the playoffs, he's probably gone, Sean McDermott, realistically, because there's no reason you lose those games. And I get it. I think from management, he's probably still not gone, Timmy, because you're shaking your head. Terry Bagula, he has like immense loyalty, especially to a coach that's actually brought him success. He has not had success with the Sabres at all. Timmy can vouch for that one. So I think the issue with it is we are expecting a Super Bowl, and we're expecting this explosive, dominant performance. And Chris made a good point too. It comes down to one or two plays. So the margin of error is very little, and things happen. I mean, the missed field goal happened. The 13-second thing, sure, you could maybe credit Sean McDermott with that because he maybe mismanaged it, right? You're playing not to lose, essentially. And I think that's my biggest gripe with him is at times it does look like he's just sort of playing not to lose. Like he's willing to give up the easy yardage and allow the other team to go down, drive down, and get an easy field goal and get points on the board. But I do think he's grown as a coach too. I mean, you had seen this year, especially when the winning streak happened, he was definitely more aggressive going forward on fourth down, allowing Josh to kind of mold this offense on his own and kind of do his own thing with it. So I think when we were 6-6, there was a ton of doubt. And had we finished out the year not the way we finished out this year, like if we didn't make the playoffs, we didn't win the division, I think I would have been more in line with like, let's get rid of this guy. We need to restart, refresh everything. There's no reason we should have lost to the Patriots, the Broncos, the Jets, you name it. There were a lot of really stupid losses that happened. We almost lost to the Chargers, and there were a couple others in between there too. But I'm kind of going in circles here. I think at the end of the day, I'm officially convinced that we need to keep him for at least another season and see what we can do with some more weapons. An actual number one receiver outside of Steph Diggs, a guy that's going to be a wide receiver 2 that will develop into a wide receiver 1. I like what Timmy said. The fact that it's more on Brandon Beane than Sean McDermott. No one wants to address that. Josh Allen hasn't had a receiver drafted before the 4th round throughout the entire McBean era. So what are we doing here?
Sorry.
What's that?
Dalton Kincaid's a receiver.
Sure, I agree with that. But I'm talking like a true outside guy, a guy that is not going to be labeled 12 personnel when he's on the field. You know what I mean? So I would like to at least give him another year. I was a little emotional the other night, Mike. I know I kind of said, listen, let's go Ben Johnson. Let's get younger. Let's scrap it all. Get a young offensive mind. I think one thing that Timmy also pointed out too, the fact that he is kind of micromanaging a lot. He took over the defensive play calling this year. Maybe allow your coaches to coach. I think he needs to do that a little bit more. I feel like he's just micromanaging a little too much. Revive, refresh, redo everything with special teams because that needs a total refresh. And then on the defensive side, maybe bring in an outsider. Have someone else call the plays. So I'm willing to keep him. You guys swayed me a little bit here. I loved your points. I'm going to hang up and listen.
Well, we got some more points to come your way. So I like that you're being patient. Again, I'm all about patience. Look, people think that you can just hire a new coach, some young coach, and flip a switch and win a Super Bowl the next year. It's only happened 2 times in the history of the NFL where a head coach has won the first year as a coach. And that happened in 2000 with George Seifert with the Niners. And that followed a Super Bowl by Mr. Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh in 1999 won the Super Bowl. He was stressed, he was tired, and he walked away with the Super Bowl. Handed that team to George Seifert. And of course, he went back-to-back with the Super Bowls. And then the only other guy to do it was Dan McCarty, I think is his name, or Don McCarty. And that was the Baltimore Colts back in, let me see here, what was the year
1969.
Don McCafferty in 1970 won the Super Bowl. He had taken over for the great Don Shula, who moved on to the Dolphins that year. And Shula had a pretty good team. They had actually won the NFC a few years prior. The year before, the year that he left was the year that they did not make the playoffs. And then McCaffrey took over, got a Super Bowl. Only happened once, guys, twice in the history of the NFL. You really think a new coach is going to come in and we're going to get to the promised land? I don't know. Anyhow, let me go to the other outsider here, the 5 or 6 apologists. Tony, give us your thoughts.
Well, I would say this. I tend to find myself on the other end of the spectrum, and it really comes down to how you define success as a fan base, as an organization. And, it's the Bills have been mired in mediocrity for a long period of time since Marv Levy left that franchise. I mean, you're talking about a stretch of 18 seasons where they didn't make the playoffs. McDermott comes in, in his first or second season, and they make the playoffs like you talked about earlier, Mike. And I think the issue is that the most difficult thing in the NFL and the difference maker for the vast majority of teams, when you look back statistically, historically, looking at franchises that win championships, the difference is at the quarterback level. And if you truly believe, which I do, I'm a believer in Josh Allen. If you believe you have the franchise's first or second best quarterback in the history of the franchise, and you have a head coach that's been there for 6 or 7 years, and they cannot find their way into the championship game, you've got to make a change. There's an old saying that says good is the enemy of great. And the Buffalo Bills are very, very good. They're in the upper echelon of teams in the NFL. And I think Sean McDermott is one of the better coaches in the NFL. With that all being said, if you took Josh Allen and put him on the Kansas City Chiefs or one of these other organizations, I think you'd have a similar result to what they've seen with those organizations, because I do believe he's a generational talent. And while I do think McDermott is a good coach, to me, a head coach's responsibilities, at least at the NFL level, if you're not calling plays like the guy in Miami, if you're not calling defenses like Belichick has done from time to time, then to Chris's point, your responsibility is to control culture and personnel. And if you believe that the personnel doesn't fit for what McDermott is trying to do, then there's a GM head coach issue. But I would also say, as an outsider watching that game, it was very evident that all of the pressure was on Buffalo. All of the pressure was on the fan base. All of the pressure was on that team and that organization. Kansas City was cruising. They were playing pressure free. And that to me speaks to the culture with an organization where they believe they have all the tools. They believe statistically and on paper, they grade out as one of the best teams in the NFL, but they don't believe it. And that's an indictment of culture. And to me, that falls on the head coach. And while I do think McDermott is a good coach, I think if you want to take the franchise from being one of the best in the NFL to being a champion in the NFL, that you've got to make a change at the head coaching level. And it may take a couple years. It may take a couple iterations. He's the longest tenured coach since Marv Levy there at that franchise. So, Buffalo's gone through a number of changes, and I just think it's time for them to make another one. And, the argument is, are we okay being an 11-win team that hosts a playoff game every year? If that's your goal and you believe that is the apex for the franchise and for the guy you have playing quarterback, then I would say keep McDermott, because he'll do that. But if the goal, and if everybody believes that you have the guy that can take you to the promised land, then you've got to get somebody steering that franchise that can get you there. And I just don't think that's him.
Wow. Again, so I'm gonna give you my view. I'm with Timmy on this one. I think you got to be a little more patient. I'm going to give you some other things. I've researched a lot of coaches because I heard when we were doing our show the other night, people are like, we got to get rid of McDermott. And I asked the question, when's the last time you saw a successful coach? I consider him successful. My criteria for success is that we're in the playoffs. We have a chance year after year. And one of these years is going to click. And again, I go back to, I already told you, took Andy Reid 21 freaking years. Now, he did. Once he found that quarterback, that golden quarterback, he finally, 2 years after Mahomes was drafted, they won a Super Bowl. Bill Cowher, got some numbers here for you guys. Bill Cowher, 14 years with the Steelers before he won a Super Bowl. They drafted Big Ben. The year after they drafted Big Ben, they won a Super Bowl. He then had a 500 season, retired, and then Mike Tomlin took over. And 2 years later, Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl with Big Ben. But it's been 15 years for Mike Tomlin now. 15 years, nothing. You got to be patient, in my opinion. So McDermott, I believe, is a great leader. The team loves him. If I felt, Tony, that he had lost the locker room, I'd agree with you. Like, if you heard a lot of things where players weren't happy, and you heard that this year with some of the coaches in the league that were let go during the season. Haven't heard that. These guys, like Sean McDermott made this mistake. I'm sure you guys heard about it. His 9/11 reference when he was trying to talk about communication, and he referenced that. And he said that early, like it was way back. Some reporter was just holding on to that for some reason and just felt it was necessary to release it to try to maybe give him a black eye. But his team stood around him, and they had nothing but good things to say about McDermott. So for me, it's leadership. I think he has that. Yes, I agree with you, Jake. He's a micromanager. I do believe he needs to relinquish control to a defensive coordinator and interview an offensive coordinator. For me, you bring those players around you. It's kind of like John Harbaugh, right? He's a game manager. Get those guys around you that can do the job. And I did not like when he said he was going to take over the defensive coordinator position because I feel as a head coach, you shouldn't be doing that. But he did a very good job. And I feel like in that last game, I hate to use excuses as far as injuries, but the injuries did mount up. We had players in there that weren't 100%. We were missing key players. We need some depth for sure. I agree with you guys that we need weapons, and that's with him. I mean, we need a Zay Flowers is what I'm saying. I know Jake wanted Zay Flowers, but we need a guy like that. We need a playmaker. And I don't know what we do with Steph. I'm not really convinced that he's him anymore. But Tony, let me throw it back to you for a rebuttal, then I'll get the other guy's opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing that you hit on with the franchises that you mentioned with both Andy Reid and Bill Cowher is they got their quarterback. And if you believe Josh Allen is that quarterback, why have you not gotten there yet? Because I fully believe it. That guy can make throws that not even Patrick Mahomes can make. And I think what you find, the biggest indictment of Josh Allen is he plays hero ball. You hear that thrown out there all the time. Well, why would a player of his skill set, of his intelligence, football intelligence, play hero ball? Because he believes that he has to do that or the team can't win. You don't want your quarterback believing that he has to do unimaginable things to win games. You want your quarterback thinking, I just need to do me in this system, and if we do that, we will win. And you don't see that with Josh Allen. And again, McDermott might be a great defensive coordinator. Some guys are French fries. French fries ain't a meal. French fries goes good with steak. You can eat French fries with salad. It's a great number 2 with anything you eat, but French fries ain't a meal. And I just have a feeling that as good as McDermott is, and maybe the guys love him, he's French fries, man. And you put him on a staff and he's a great DC, but he ain't never going to fill no meal. He ain't never going to be the main course at Thanksgiving. And if you want to get over the hump, if you believe that this is the quarterback that can get us there, you need to get a head coach that can maximize that and take the pieces around them and get them over the hump. I think they have that in Baltimore. I know that they have that in Kansas City. I believe they have that in Baltimore. I just don't think they have the guy running the show.
All right. Let me throw it to Timmy on that. So the one correlation is that all these coaches that we talked about, once they got that quarterback, they won a Super Bowl within 1 or 2 years. 2 years after Josh Allen was drafted, we actually got to the championship game. We didn't go over the hump to get to the Super Bowl. But let me throw it to you, Timmy, to kind of have your thoughts on what Tony's been saying.
So the biggest thing for me too this offseason is, who do you want to be your head coach then? So Jake is throwing around Ben Johnson. And what was the Detroit Lions offense centered around? It was running the ball. And they had a game manager at quarterback. He has 3 very good wide receivers, and he has a very good tight end, and he has 2 very good running backs. What were a lot of people complaining at the end of the year for the Bills season? They ran the ball too much. They were running too much. They weren't throwing the ball deep. There weren't explosive plays. Well, you're going to get the same thing in Ben Johnson. And how much of a difference is that going to make? Do you even know if Ben Johnson even has that? So who is another coach that possibly Bills fans were looking at? Jim Harbaugh. So you're complaining that Sean McDermott is a micromanager. Jim Harbaugh is the biggest micromanager of all football. I mean, college football and pro sports. That was the biggest thing in San Francisco, and why he got kicked out was because he micromanaged the team too much, and he was pissing off the players at the end of his tenure. So there really isn't too many options when it comes to head coaches this year. Some people are saying Bobby Slowick too. Bobby Slowick had one good year. I mean, he has CJ Stroud had an amazing season. I want to see what happens next season with that team, just because the AFC South, you play in that division, that's a joke of division, to be totally honest with you. So, I mean, I'm a CJ Stroud fan. I love CJ Stroud. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the future. But let's see if that keeps on going. I mean, and who is recently the offensive coordinator of the Bengals? He just got hired as a head coach.
Brian Callahan.
Carolina.
Carolina. I mean,
You're saying.
Yeah, Zach Taylor was calling the plays for the Bengals. So how good of a coach is he going to be? I know Carolina is not a very good destination to go at. So that's part of the reason why I'm saying maybe firing McDermott this year might not be the best option, just because there's not many options when it comes out there in the field. And I think you at least have to give him one more year. And they've been saying the right things. You need explosive players. So put your money where your mouth is. Show us next season what you're going to be doing. Get the receivers, because you look at Baltimore. How much of a difference does it make now that Lamar Jackson has receivers? I mean, what is his first complaint about Lamar Jackson? He ran the ball too much. They're running the ball too much. He didn't have wide receivers. He can't throw the ball. His throwing mechanics have gotten so much better. He's throwing the ball to dynamic wide receivers now. He has an offense surrounding him. And that's something that the Bills need to do, and they've neglected. I understand that they have Dalton Kincaid, but he's not going to be – people are comparing him to Travis Kelce. He's not going to be Travis Kelce, but he's very good at catching the ball, and he's going to have a good career in the NFL. But they need to get that other guy, because you see other teams doing it. You see the Minnesota Vikings. They already have Justin Jefferson, and last year they got Addison. And when Justin Jefferson was out, Addison was having a great year at that point. So there's a lot of things that, I mean, I understand that you want to fire Sean McDermott and you're kind of getting sick of being a middling team. But how many options are going to be truly out there? Do you want a 72-year-old Bill Belichick to coach this team? Do you want a Mike Vrabel to come in here who failed in Tennessee? Like, how many options are really out there? Because the strong offensive teams, like Shanahan's coaching tree, is kind of depleted right now. You can't get anyone from the Dolphins because Mike McDaniel calls the plays. So when it comes to offensive play calling coaches, there really isn't much out there to be, kind of like starving for right now. And maybe you give
Timmy,
a year.
What do you think about Dave Canales?
I'm not familiar with him. Who's he with?
He's the offensive coordinator of the Bucs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
He's a super popular pick right now. A lot of people like him.
Yeah.
Tim, I think you hit it in Vrabel. I think Vrabel's the guy. You want to change culture and have like Chris mentioned, basically like a president, not somebody who's actually calling X's and O's. Like, I love Vrabel in Buffalo. That's just me personally.
I just don't know how much of a change it's going to be between him and McDermott. I'm not saying that there's anything against Vrabel, but like, fans are expecting a different flavor. They want an offensive coach. If they bring Mike Vrabel in, he's another defensive guy. Even though he hasn't been a defensive coordinator anyway, where he's been a linebackers coach in Ohio State and then got the Tennessee job. But in reality, I mean, he had Matt LaFleur, who's gone now, Arthur Smith, who failed in Atlanta as his offensive coordinators, and then his current offensive coordinator, I don't even know who that is. I mean, he kind of flopped at the end as well. So, I mean, I just don't see anyone that sticks out there too much that's going to take this offense to another level. And that's where I'm kind of saying we got to kind of get the personnel to see what this actually is before we make the decision on McDermott. And I know Bills fans who want the immediate results, they're not going to like that. But obviously that's the direction that this team is going this offseason. That's what I feel. And I don't have a problem with that at this moment.
The one thing that I'll say about Vrabel, if you look at his tenure at Tennessee, one thing that he was very successful in doing was creating very good defenses, but then maximizing personnel. I mean, you look at that team for like his entire tenure there. I mean, he was literally piecing together and winning with Ryan Tannehill and nobody at quarterback. So you give a guy like that, like him, a weapon like Josh Allen, and then have him concentrate on culture. And to your point about Arthur Smith, who was a terrible head coach, he was a very good OC. When he took the Falcons job, he was one of the most sought after coaches when he was coming out, because he was considered this offensive guru. And again, maybe it's just not the right time for him, but I think it just shows you that Vrabel doesn't need to be the guy calling offense or defense. He's willing to relinquish those things and then work on maximizing players, motivating, and culture. And I really do feel like maybe that's the missing element in Buffalo. Right? And again, I'll shut up because I probably talked more than anybody else.
Tony,
you're good.
Tony, let me ask you this. So let's say they went with Vrabel. Vrabel's going to probably bring in his own OC.
Arthur Smith is going to be the OC in Buffalo.
Okay.
Vrabel's
he's going to bring in his OC, his own DC, and we may not have the personnel to fit that. So it's going to take definitely more than a year, even a couple of years, to kind of build a team around what they want to do. Maybe we have the players plug and play into their system, but I don't think so. Again, I haven't seen in the history of the NFL that happened before. And so, Jake, let me throw it to you. Been a little quiet here. What's your thoughts on what
I don't hear that often?
I was going to say that's a surprise.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Timmy. Just because it's the sexy pick and he did great things in Detroit using Ben Johnson as the example again, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to correlate to a great job done as a head coach. I mean, you look at all of these guys. I mean, we named a couple of them, Artie Smith in particular, and I get he didn't really have the quarterback in Atlanta. He thought he did maybe with Desmond Ridder, but that was an absolute joke. Bijan Robinson not getting enough touches. I mean, there were just countless things, right? I'm sure Atlanta fans could really chime in on that. It doesn't necessarily mean just because they do this great thing with the team they're at as the offensive coordinator that it's going to correlate to being a great head coach. It is always the sexier pick over a defensive-minded guy, but my pick would actually be what Tony was saying. I actually think if we were to make that move, I'd be all for getting Mike Vrabel. He has head coaching experience, and that's a guy that I understand, he's Tennessee. It didn't really pan out, but that is a dude that is willing to relinquish his duties and let his coaches coach. The best coaches let their coaches coach. I mean, Turner Gill at UB did the same damn thing. That's why UB was so good, Timmy. And we're doing the college game thing here, right? But I think same deal for the NFL. You got to let your coaches coach. That's what I'm saying about Sean McDermott. I think he definitely is too big on micromanaging, and I think that's definitely an issue, and that might be causing us, to not reach our max potential. I think situationally too, obviously, there have been some questionable moves by Sean McDermott in the past. I think that's why a lot of people are like, I'm done with this guy. 13 seconds is where we peaked, and we're never going to get better than that. And we haven't. I mean, we've been pushed out of the division round both years over the last two seasons. So it's like, that's why people are so upset about it. I understand you want to make the immediate change. I am willing to give it one more season just because I feel like we need to give it a year to get that personnel, like that receiving core, really make it happen and see what we can do. But if it's my pick for another guy, I think Mike Vrabel's my guy for sure.
Do you think he micromanages on offense?
I do. He says he doesn't. Josh even said he doesn't really get involved too much.
Where are you getting from that he micromanages on offense? From the news?
I mean, clearly there was just because
the argument was Josh's in 2020 was he runs the ball too much. They don't have a running back, and he's going to take a lot of hits, and they're not going to have Josh Allen for much longer. So what do they try to do? They try to expand the running game, and that might be a Ken Dorsey thing and Joe Brady type of thing. Problem was they didn't have the running backs in the stable. You had a Devin Singletary who's just not dynamic. He's a very boring running back. And then you had Zach Moss, who is just another middling running back. They've had some good careers the past couple of years, but they finally get a running back this year, James Cook. They get him going once the offensive coordinators changed over. he starts having they have their first 1,000-yard rusher this year, and then it comes to, well, now they run the ball too much. That Cowboys game was won by James Cook. He runs the ball too much. Josh Allen needs to throw the ball more. And then what are you hearing why is he throwing the ball more? Well, because his receivers aren't getting open. So that's where I kind of stand is, does he really micromanage the offense? Or is it more of a player problem where they don't have the right players on the offensive side of the ball? Because you don't have guys getting open. Gabe Davis was a dud this year. Stephon Diggs fell off a cliff this year. So you're relying on Dalton Kincaid and you're relying on Khalil Shakir at the end of the season, getting all your receiving yards. And that's kind of where
the only thing I would say, Tim, though, is like if you look at like the games that the Bills played well in this year and the games that they didn't play well, there are some outlier games, but I would say the Chiefs game is a microcosm of kind of the shortcomings in the Bills, in that the Chiefs made second half adjustments, and they were one of the best teams in the NFL in making second half adjustments. The adjustments they made to stop the running game in the second half, the Bills had no answers for. And to me, that is directly related to coaching. And that happened multiple times this year with the Bills, where there were adjustments made by who they were playing, and the Bills had nothing to counteract that. And again, that's not only Sean McDermott, that's also the assistant coaches. But I feel like, you have to, when you go in at halftime and you're sitting on a lead, or it's a tight game, or you're having success, you have to sit down as a staff and say, okay, what do we expect them to do in the second half? Are they going to run more man and more zone? We've had success running inside outside zone, so they're going to stack the box. Like, you have to think about what the other team's going to do to counteract your success. And they, by and large this year, that was one of the most glaring things where they came up short game in and game out with second half adjustments. And I keep going back to that and watching that Chiefs games and go, man, you watch the first half of that game and it's like the Bills are finally going to get it done. And you watch the second half of that game and it's a completely different story.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony, because we mentioned that as well. Spagnola, was it Spagnola?
Yeah,
Yeah. So he's one of the best, right, at making adjustments. Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel our offense made enough adjustments. Now, we all know that every team makes an adjustment. They just don't make the right adjustments sometimes. So they had our number. They shut down the run game, and they did their thing. So I agree with you on the adjustments, but that to me is more on the offensive coordinator. Look, we had Ken Dorsey. We fired him. We gave Joe Brady a chance. First time Joe Brady's ever calling plays, OC. You're going against Andy Reid, who's been calling plays for 100 years. So I think, to Timmy's point, you got to bring in some, I don't know, they're going to do an interview. I don't know if Brady's the guy. I mean, everyone's saying give him a chance. Well, maybe not. Maybe we do bring in one of these offensive gurus, some OC that can come in, young guy, smart, fresh, and get the guys around you. It's like the president of the United States, not always the smartest guy, but he brings around the smart guys to make him look good, right?
Yeah, no, you're spot on, Mike. I think, another random saying, but, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We've had 7 years of McDermott. You guys have gotten close. And again, I recognize that we're in this crazy dynamic in the NFL where we have, 4 or 5 Hall of Fame quarterbacks all playing in their prime at the same time. Like it's a unique time in football, other than the era when, you had Kelly and Marino and Montana, and most of these guys are playing in the AFC. So I recognize that, but I just think if you're sitting here at the end of next year, right, and the Bills win 11, 12 games, they lose in the AFC Championship in the divisional round, I think if you have me back on the show, I'm going to say, how is this any different than last year? And that's my fear for you as fans, is going through this again, is having a guy who is, again, in my opinion, the most unbelievable talent we've seen at the quarterback level in probably a decade. He broke all kinds of records, and you can't get over the hump with maybe the best guy in the league. That's what I keep going back to. And again, I don't think Sean McDermott's a bad coach. It may just not be the right spot for him in Buffalo.
Well, Tony, you mentioned like all the quarterbacks, all the good quarterbacks in the AFC. Another reason why I already said it's extremely hard to win a Super Bowl, even more so now with all these talented quarterbacks. And to Jake, your point, I know Sean McDermott, people criticize him for bad play calling or bad moves here and there. What head coach doesn't get criticized for bad calls? Right. Go listen. Go listen to Rick. I'm in his chat whenever they lose a game or what's been happening over the past few years with the Ravens. Oh my God. I mean, there's been plenty of mistakes.
You wanted Harbaugh gone years ago.
Yeah. Everybody.
He wanted Brandon Staley.
And I think Chris would agree that Harbaugh makes mistakes as well. He's criticized for bad calls on the field. So Jake, I know you had something to say. Go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to say, just kind of going back to the micromanaging thing. So I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, right? So you fire, I didn't really fire Leslie Frazier, but Leslie Frazier walks, right? You fire the special teams coordinator. You fire Ken Dorsey. Then you let Joe Brady come in, call plays, and we still got the same result as Tony said. So I guess that's my only rebuttal. Like I said, I am on the side. We give them another season. I think it's going to happen anyways. The Bagulas of it, they're not going to fire him. It's not going to happen. But in a perfect world, what do we want? I think this year, what he did, it was pretty amazing. I mean, you consider the defense that we had. They were so banged up. It was completely decimated. For us to go out and win 6 in a row like that, I mean, it is pretty damn impressive. And that starts up top for sure. But now, next year, and this is crazy to say because I feel like we said this year. It's like, if it doesn't happen, I'm done. Like,
you're done.
I'm going to give it one more year. One more year.
I think Chris, I think it's part because, the Gen Z, the Gen Alphas, the Millennials, they're just not patient. This is why TikTok and YouTube Shorts are so popular. You're just not patient. They want immediate feedback. And they got to be patient in this game of football.
No, I get
hard.
it.
So Chris,
I would have to say, like, are you guys looking at how many wins you've had recently? 11 this year, 13 the year before, then 11, then 13. And I'm going to rebuttal what Tony said 20 minutes ago. Do you really want the same thing over and over again? 11, 12, 13 wins and a win in the playoffs? Yeah, that's what I want every year. If you tell me, okay, keeping Sean McDermott for the next 3 years gives me 11, 12, 13 regular season wins and at least one win in the playoffs, judging by how based around luck and chance the NFL is, I want that every year. If you can tell me that's going to happen, I'm 100% keeping him. It's exactly what I want. It's like Texas Hold'em, baby. You need a chip and a chair, and the Bills have more than one chip, right? I mean, they are in it every single year. You can't ask for more. The best coaches of all time win a Super Bowl every 5 or 6 years that they coach. Patience, guys. It's fine. You are not going to make the Super Bowl every year. You're definitely not going to win the Super Bowl every year. You're winning your division more years than not. You're winning a playoff game every single year. Chill.
Chris, I fully agree with you. I think it goes back to my original point, which is, as a fan base, as an organization, how do you define success? And to your point, if success is AFC East championships, making it to the playoffs, then McDermott's your guy because he's proven year in and year out that he can get that done. I would say the only caveat to that is he has the most unbelievable talent in quarterback, maybe other than Patrick Mahomes or Lamar. And it just feels like you're winning gunfights with the bazooka when you should just be blowing everybody off the board. And I think that's the thing for Bills fans is they're like, we got the guy, we got the quarterback. It's the same argument that Charger fans are making. They're like, we got the guy at quarterback. We just need somebody to steer this team. And I think, now that the Harbaugh announcement's been made by the Chargers, like that's why all the Chargers fans are like, we're going to the promised land because they believe they have the right mix of head coach and quarterback. And Mike, to your point about Andy Reid and taking, 20 years to win a Super Bowl, he was in Philly forever. They had great teams. They went to the AFC Championship or NFC Championship a bunch of times. They went to the Super Bowl. They could never make it happen.
I think it was.
Yeah. And so he leaves, goes to KC, gets paired with the right quarterback and they win championships. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, it might just not be the right spot for Josh Allen and McDermott. They just might not be the right guys to get to the championship. And if you believe that they're not the right guys and your goal is to win a Super Bowl, you got to make a change.
So, Tony, Andy Reid took 7 years to win a Super Bowl with KC. He didn't just come in and win a Super Bowl. It took him 7 years. Don't forget that the city of Buffalo's cursed as well, as far as our sports teams go. So you got to factor that.
Dude,
you have to
factor that
in.
Boston Red Sox fans. Tell that to Chicago Cubs fans.
No, I mean, I'm serious. And then, so these are all good discussions. For me, because we need to move on to the championship Sunday. And this has been great conversation. So I'm going to go around the board here. I am for keeping Sean McDermott. I love his leadership. I'm with Chris there. I mean, that's you asked the question early on. What's your criteria of success? Give me an opportunity in the playoffs to make a run. Get me there and make a run. Look at the Chiefs. Everyone said this year, oh man, they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable. But it's all about who cares what you do during the season as long as you make the playoffs. Once you make the playoffs, it's a completely different season. And they got healthy. Look at freaking Travis Kelce. And that's another thing. When Mahomes came into the league, he had Travis Kelce and he had Tyreek Hill. We didn't have that for Josh. I'm sorry, Steph Diggs is not Tyreek Hill. He's not that playmaker. Never is and never will be. And we just didn't have the weapons. Put those weapons around Josh. It's a complete team thing. It's not just, I got this great quarterback. Took Lamar. Lamar was drafted in the same year as Josh Allen. Now he's got an MVP, probably going to get his second MVP. Well, what does it matter if he doesn't win a Super Bowl this year? But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So for me, I'm saying stay with McDermott. And I don't know if it's just one more year. I'm like, let's see how he does next year. And let's see what the circumstances were. Did we have all these injuries once again? I don't know, because that plays a big part in what I would think towards the end of the season. So that's my thought. Jake, let me get your final thoughts on this McDermott topic.
You know what?
Which has been great.
Let's talk about a bigger hot seat that needs to be taken here. The strength and conditioning staff for the Buffalo Bills. How many freaking injuries did this team have? I mean, you want to talk about firing anyone. It's that staff right there. And, I have tremendous respect for those guys, but my Lord, I mean, it was like every other play we had another guy down with an injury. And I get it happens league-wide, but it just seemed way, way more common with the Buffalo Bills than any other team. So that's my first take. My second take is, like I said, I'm willing to give it one more year. But my problem is I feel like we had the same exact conversation last year in the offseason, Mike. And I'm just tired of it. It's like, let's get him more weapons. It's like, okay, we got him Dalton Kincaid. Steph Diggs went off the first 8 games of the year. And then after that, he just disappeared. I'm glad that we found Khalil Shakir. Maybe it's a matter of kind of building it like the Patriots. Maybe we don't need this superstar guy. Maybe we got to just piece together a bunch of grinders and just use 2 tight ends. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But my problem is it's like, again, we lose in the divisional round, and I get, missed field goal. Chances are the Chiefs probably go down and score a touchdown. So we lose again. I'm tired of having the same conversation every offseason. That's my only gripe with it. I do believe that Sean McDermott has won over that locker room, and the players love him. So there's something to be said about that. That's not easy to do. The players believe in him. And if that's the case, especially our quarterback, if he truly does mean what he says, then there is some merit to that. That's huge. That doesn't happen in a lot of places. I mean, you saw the train wreck there was in Las Vegas this year with Josh McDaniels. So, I understand that side of it. But again, I don't want to have this exact same conversation next year. It's like, you get Josh the weapons. If the same thing happens, then, what else is there to do?
31 other teams have that same conversation every year.
I know.
31 other teams. It's
what's
hard.
your expectation for next year?
Yeah.
It is a Super Bowl, Timmy. It's a Super Bowl, man.
Okay. Because there's a lot of good teams in the AFC.
No, I know. We have the best quarterback in the NFL. I firmly believe that. We have the best quarterback in the NFL. If Josh can get us, no matter what, if you have JA-17, you're going to be in the mix. But I think it's all the other things then that allow you to get to that next level. And coaching is a big piece of that. So one more year, proceed cautiously optimistic, but that's where I'm at. It's hard. And you guys, listen, you did, Chris and Timmy, you guys swayed me a little bit tonight. Mike, you did as well. I'm feeling a little bit better about it. The other day, I was very emotional. I said, Ben Johnson, let's get him here. Timmy, you made some very good points about that. I think my other option, like I said, if I had to pick another coach right now, it would be Mike Vrabel. And it's not because he's an offensive-minded coach or anything like that. I think he would bring a new energy. He would let his coaches coach. Players have, I mean, Taylor Lewan, I'm a big Bustin' with the Boys guy. Taylor Lewan came out and said, best coach I've ever had. I think it would be a very similar type of culture. I love that guy. He's freaking packing a chew on game day. He's out there on the sidelines. I mean, he gets the boys fired up. A little bit of different demeanor than Sean McDermott instead of just clapping every play. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Sean. I love him. Let's ride this out. I'm done. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to drink my bourbon.
Jake would have fired Marv Levy back in the day, after the first Super Bowl loss, after the second Super Bowl loss, after the third.
At least we got there. At least we got to the Super Bowl.
We'd have been calling for his head. Look, the Bills were the best team back in the 90s, in the early 90s. Best team. But guess what? That NFC was stacked. And this time around, the AFC is stacked. To get through all those teams that Chris mentioned earlier is super hard. You need to be playing perfect football, and you got to get a little luck. Chris, let me go to you now for your final thoughts on the McDermott conversation.
I'm just going to say, stay away from Todd Monken and stay away from Mike McDonald, please. I need to
those guys are definitely going to get a coaching job.
Yeah. I mean, McDonald's is as good as gone. Monken, I can see him staying as an OC, and why would he go somewhere
I love
else?
that guy.
Yeah. But I don't need to repeat anything I said before other than, I think you have a personnel problem, not a coaching problem. I mean, you guys were so banged up. Are you kidding me this year? And, still had a good showing and we're a play away from playing in Baltimore this week. So don't overreact. Maybe, go a little more all in on personnel, spend up in the offseason, trade up in the draft, make a splash, figure out if this is really your guy, give him the tools, get a little luckier on the health, and good luck next year.
Yeah, I love that, Chris. The Bills, I always say in any football game, if you have the ball at the end of a game with a chance to win, we did. We have not lost all season. We have not lost any games more than one score. We haven't been blown out, beat by two scores at all this year. And so this team is very good. I believe it's depth. We were exposed at linebacker. Like when our main linebacker went down, and unfortunately, the dude was healthy. He's a small guy, but he was fantastic. He should be a Pro Bowler. He was healthy the whole season, and he gets hurt right before going into the Chiefs game. Massive miss, and we didn't really have anyone. We had AJ Klein, 52, a dude who's been on our practice squad for the past 5 years, and obviously no other team is hunting down AJ Klein.
He was ready to get in an RV and go down to Florida. We called him up, and he said, "All right, I'll come back and play."
So he was exposed a lot, and again, we were without one of our starting corners, Rasul Douglas, who was a great pickup from the Packers, played great for us, got dinged up, and he wasn't 100%. You can tell in that game. So I agree with you. Personnel. Timmy, how you doing? I know it's late, buddy. This is very late for you. Let me go to you for your closing thoughts on this discussion. And again, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah. So I'm with Tony on everything. To be completely honest, I agree with everything that he said. I'm just trying to be based in reality with the Buffalo Bills and the way the Pagulas work. I remember asking you at the beginning of this year when we did, I think it was my first show, I asked you guys, if you fire McDermott, does that mean Bean is gone as well? And you both said, well, yeah, Bean's never going to fire McDermott. So what's going to happen is this team's going to need a wholesale change for everything for those things to happen. And this year, let's be realistic, it's not happening. They're not going to fire McDermott. They're not going to fire Bean. Pagula is going to give him another year. So yeah, does Sean McDermott deserve another year? I think so. But like they said, you have to get explosive players. They got to put their money where their mouth is and show that they're going to go they're going to go all in on offense this offseason and put the guys around him to help Josh out. And if that doesn't work out, then next year we'll have this conversation and it'll just be the opposite, where most likely Bean and McDermott are going to be gone, and you're going to have another year of Bobby Slowick, who's going to be an offensive coordinator. I'll see him getting a head coaching job, and if he has a successful year, then he's an option for the Bills. Or Monken down in Baltimore too. Those are going to be options. But this year, I just don't see a sexy option for the Bills to go after, and that's why I'm saying that Sean McDermott's just going to stay another year.
Okay. Kind of got swayed a little bit from what you originally started, and then giving credit to Tony. I don't know if that's.
So my mind's, because I'm thinking with the Buffalo Sabres, I have the exact opposite mindset where they have to fire everybody because the team is just so middling and boring, and the coach doesn't have the team anymore. But the thing is, the players still love Sean McDermott, so they're still they still have something for him. Now, does he fully deserve this another year? Probably not. We're getting tired of it, but this immediate change that you're going to do, is it going to be this? I mean, everyone's been complaining the past couple of years. The offense is just Josh. Do something this offseason. If they don't do anything this offseason, then, I mean, heads are rolling. I mean, fans are not going to stand for that. That's it. So, I don't know. We'll see what they can do this offseason first.
All right. I agree. Tony, you've made your points. Is there any closing thoughts you want to say? And again, if we're back here saying this next year, you better be on this and give us a lot of crap, man. So
I will save my reservation for this time slot next year when we have this conversation. I as much as I hate to tell this to you guys, I don't think anything's going to change. And I agree with the take on personnel that both Chris and Tim had, and that's been flying through the chat, that they really do have some personnel problems, and some of that, I don't know what their cap situation, whether or not that can be solved. I don't know if they can make changes in the draft to get that done. But I feel like expecting something different than what's happened the last 7 years is not realistic. And if what he's done is not the new definition of success, that you need to move on. And one thing that I put in our text is how you can gauge whether or not you have a good head coach is if you fired McDermott tomorrow, would there be a market for him to be anybody else's head coach? And my answer is no. I don't think anybody else would.
100%.
So that's how you can gauge whether or not you have a dynamic, successful, at least from the perspective of league people. If you've got the guy at head coach, if you fired him, like Vrabel, they fired him in Tennessee. He was rumored for every open job there was. Same thing with Bill Belichick. If you fired McDermott tomorrow, I don't think there'd be anybody talking about hiring him as their head coach.
All right. I'll respect your opinion. I disagree with it, but I respect your opinion as always.
Mike, quick question. Yeah. What's your expectation for next year for the team?
At least to the AFC Championship.
Okay. Because I think that's where my expectation too is for the team is in the Super Bowl. So I think that's why we also think different from Tony and Jake as well. So yeah, that's another thing.
Well, listen, chat, I appreciate you. The reason we haven't gone to the chat a lot, usually we do on these shows, but we had a lot to get through. And if we had gone to the chat, we'd probably be about 2 hours in. And so I appreciate all you out there. I see all the takes, and I want anyone who rewatches the show, because we usually get a lot of rewatch folks who aren't able to catch us this late on the East Coast. But leave us your opinions on Sean McDermott, because it's a buzz around town. A lot of podcasts are out there calling for his job. So I'd love to hear your opinions as well. All right. Thank you,
Ryan
everyone.
Ryan Ree chirping Chris on the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
Man. You got enemies in the chat, Chris.
What is going on, Ryan? What's the problem with the Ravens? You got something against them?
I got my hater blockers on. All outside noise means nothing to me right now.
Yeah, right. He's wearing his jersey. So let's get into it. Let's get into Championship Sunday. Timmy, it's up to you, buddy. I know it's late. You can stay with us. I would love it. But if you're tired, I get it.
I got an early surgery in the morning, so I got to head out.
No worries. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Sorry, guys.
All right.
Thanks,
hey, Jake, some of us have to work out here,
Yeah, fair. Love you.
All right. Good night, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, let's start with the Lions. We'll leave the best for last. Let's start with the Lions and the Niners. Niners, top seed in the NFC, hosting this week. And I'm going to start with Tony. Tony, your thoughts on this game? First of all, this I don't have it up here. I don't know what the what Vegas odds are right now. I know you're one of those guys. Maybe one of you can give us the odds, and then talk to me about this game. How you see it going, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing
51.5, right?
there
Is
you
that
go. I think
Yeah.
I want to say like the spread's like 7 or 6.5, 7 is where it's at. The one thing that I would say from the gambling perspective in terms of the perception of the public, right now the perception of the public on Detroit is probably at its peak. And the perception of the 49ers is probably maybe not at the lowest point because they went through a stretch where they lost 4 games in a row. But after struggling to beat the Packers and kind of the overwhelming narrative is they shouldn't have won that game, you're getting peak Detroit and you're getting San Francisco at a discount in terms of the betting odds, in my opinion. And I think that San Francisco, when you look at that staff, when you look at that roster in comparison, look at the guys that play for San Francisco and look at the guys that play for Detroit. San Francisco is a much better team, top to bottom, offense, defense, at basically every position on the field. There is no unit that I can look at Detroit and say Detroit's unit is the best on the field when they line up against San Francisco. And for that reason, I can't pick against San Francisco. And that's why I think San Francisco is going to win this game pretty handily. It's in San Francisco. Like I said, perception is so down on the Niners and so high on Detroit. And I think it's just right for San Francisco just to beat the crap out of them. With all of that being said, what Detroit has success on offense exposes where, since San Francisco is the weakest on defense, so they have the ability to move the ball, to run the ball. They also have down the field threats. Laporta to me he's TE1 next year. If you're drafting in fantasy, go get Laporta. Yeah. But I just think this is a situation where too many people are so high on Detroit, and I think San Francisco is going to absolutely shellac them in that game.
Do you think it changes if Debo doesn't play? Because I don't know the latest on him. I know he was kind of questionable. Do you think it changes at all?
I mean, it changes the way that San Francisco calls plays. It changes how they do things on offense. But if you look just from a production standpoint, Debo's been in and out of the lineup. And when he's been out, other guys have stepped up. It's been Ayuk and Kittle, right? So they have enough offensive weapons where you can just slide production from one guy to another. If it was a situation like, let's say, like the Miami Dolphins, where you have a clear 1 and 2, and if you lose one of those guys, you're kind of asked out. In San Francisco, it's a completely different dynamic. They can give the ball more to McCaffrey. Yeah, they can move the ball around. They just have so many weapons. So is it different? Yes. Do I think they have the ability to make up for that with the other weapons? Absolutely.
So you say they'll cover the spread. What about the over? You said, what was it, 51.5, Chris? Is that what you're saying?
Something like that, yeah.
You think they hit the over, Tony?
I think they hit the under, but I think they win this game like 35-10. Like, wow. I think they absolutely blow the doors off of Detroit. I just have a feeling that, like I said, the public perception is so high in Detroit right now and so low on the Niners. And I just think the Niners were the clear class of that league. And Detroit's been they've been punching away above their weight class for like the last 6 or 8 weeks. And, hats off to them. Dan Campbell, Mike Vrabel 2.0, maybe the better version of Mike Vrabel, because he's maximized what they have on that roster. But I think this is a clear difference in talent and coaching staff, and I think that's all going to come to fruition on Sunday or Saturday, whatever this game is. I think it's Sunday.
Yeah, I think that both games are on Sunday. Championship Sunday. So,
yep.
Chris, give us your take on this game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Tony. We kind of saw this a little bit with the Ravens when a team gets a bye in the first round. Especially when it's only one team in each conference, the public just kind of sours on them almost for no reason because they don't see them play for a while. So I'm with you. They haven't played. They kind of played a close game. Deebo Samuel's hurt. I just think this is the lowest you'll see the Niners. All over the Niners if you get them at 6.5. I don't know if it ever is that low, but I like them even at 7.5. I mean, who on the Lions defense is stopping this offense? That's where I'm at with it is the Lions don't really have a defense to speak of. And, I think the 49ers offense, Debo or not, are going to have their way with the Lions. So, yeah, I think the Lions will put up more than 10 points. I think it's going to be a relatively high scoring game. But, I see the Niners winning by like 12, 13 points.
Wow. Jake, is there any love you can bring for the Lions? I mean, they're one of those 12 teams that have never won a Super Bowl. They were founded in 1930, even older than the Bills. So they have been, I think they're the second oldest team of those 12 that hasn't won a Super Bowl. Can you bring any love? Can you give any hope to the Lion fans out there?
Yeah, of course. I think, I was going to do a little soft take on the Lions. Like, maybe, there's a chance. But now you guys fired me up. They're going to out-physical the hell out of this 49ers team. I'm going to tell you why. It's going to start up front. Listen, I know Jonah Jackson's banged up right now, but Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, Penei Sewell, are you kidding me? I get the Niners have a very good defensive line, but these dudes are going to manhandle. It starts at the line of scrimmage. They're going to out-physical the Niners. That's how they're going to win this game. I think you even saw that a little bit in the Green Bay game last week. And I get the old rest versus Russ argument, right? The Niners had a week off. The Packers came in. They were hot. They rode the momentum a little bit. They're a kick away from probably winning that game. I do think the Lions have a legitimate chance. And I understand why you guys think it's going to be one of those situations where they blow the doors off the Lions, the Niners. But to me, I feel like their identity, Timmy brought this up earlier, Ben Johnson's offense, running the football. They got two very dynamic running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So I feel like that's going to be, and it's so cliche to say, but they're going to run the football. They're going to run it right down their throats. Now, Tony knows a little bit about this kid named Fred Warner, who I think is the best linebacker in the NFL. The guy's unbelievable. Tony coached Fred Warner. So they do have to worry about him. And I don't know how you handle that. I think there's no shot in hell that you're going to be able to stop Fred Warner from making plays. It's just going to happen. But with all that being said, I think the Lions defense, you talked about the Niners defense being so good. I think the Lions defense, they got some dogs on that team. Aiden Hutchinson being one of them. You got Brian Branch, the safety position, who's played extremely well. Alex Anzalone, who I really like. Derek Barnes. Tyson Alualu, who's actually been playing a lot better lately. I know he's a little bit older, but you talk about veteran presence. I mean, there's some guys on that team that have been there, seen that. So I feel like the Lions, don't sleep on them. I know it's the public perception right now, go with the underdog team. But to me, I feel like their identity, and this is their identity, it was established when Dan Campbell came in, had that press conference where he talked about biting off kneecaps. That is what they're going to do on Sunday, boys. And I can't wait to see it. It's going to be amazing. By the way, they have some very good weapons, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, by the way, very physical receiver, doesn't mind getting a little dirty and blocking, which I love to see. You got Josh Reynolds, who's a deep threat, Jameson Williams. I mean, you got some really good players on that team, so don't sleep on them. Jared Goff, by the way, Timmy, Jared Goff, not just a game manager. That guy's a very good quarterback. So I think the Lions are going to pull off an upset. And I'm going to say it, 31-28, the over's hitting.
I love it. So they also have their rookie tight end, Sam Laporta, right? Chris
Laporta
mentioned that earlier.
You guys already highlighted Dallas Clark 2.0. I love it.
He's been incredible for them, and they've thrown him the ball a lot, more than we threw the ball to Kincaid quite a bit, but Laporta been producing. But Chris, I got to ask you, because your Baltimore Ravens played them. You whooped them.
Mike, I got to interrupt.
Yeah.
Let's just pull this up for a second.
Oh, yes. There we go.
What? I mean,
he does.
You're giving me an enormous head right now.
We get that a lot.
I appreciate
it.
it.
Don't get too excited. Someone called me Red Rocket in the chat, so I guess I like
No, but this is
you kind of do though. You give me those vibes a little bit.
Jake gets called Josh all the time. I call him Josh by mistake many times. So yes, that is a definite yes. But Chris, going back to your question, the question I have for you, you guys just whooped up on the Niners. Now they had something like 4 or 5 turnovers, which of course is going to make a game go the way that it did. But you exposed them. So talk about a little bit about what you saw in that game from your Ravens and how they were able to beat the Niners, and maybe is there any way that Detroit's going to watch that film and be able to take advantage?
Well, I'll say, Mike, we exposed the Niners and beat them by 14 points on the road. let's not forget that we beat the Lions by 32 points this year as well. So they each have to watch tape on that. Sorry, I had to just pat ourselves.
I didn't
on the back a
realize
little
you
bit for
beat them
that
by
one.
32 points. I don't know. That was before they were gelling, I'm going to say.
No, the Lions came in. I believe they came into Baltimore as a number 1 seed in the NFC at the time and beat the brakes off of them in Baltimore. But yeah, so the Niners, I think we just really exposed Purdy that game. He had the worst game of his career on Christmas night. I think he had 3 interceptions, maybe 4. But yeah, I don't know. I just can't. I hear what you're saying, Jake. I think you're just doing it for the TV time, saying you'll back the Lions. But
No. I firmly believe this. I swear to God.
on the road,
This is on God.
the road, Jake.
Yes,
On the road.
On the road. It's gonna happen, baby. It's gonna happen.
Okay. I'm with you on the skill. I think it takes a lot to rival the skill position players that the 49ers have. I think the Lions are almost there, right? Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. And, some would say they even have a more seasoned quarterback, right? Than Purdy. But I don't know, man. I don't think the Lions are winning the game on the road against this well-coached of a 49ers team whose one blip on the radar was against the Ravens, who are absolutely white hot right now in the last 3 months. So,
All right.
Well, Sungwon Co says Weatherman Anyang is calling for a torrential rain and super frigid temperatures. Bring your ponchos. And I get the Niners have Christian McCaffrey, but guess what? We got a 2-man show there in Detroit. And I'll take the Detroit run game right now over the Niners run game. I'm going to say that too. It's crazy. This is a wild statement, but I'm going to do it.
I fact checked the weather. It looks like it's a nice day on Sunday. I'm not seeing any of that.
Oh, wow.
So
maybe it's a different game. I don't know.
I'm not
he's
sure.
he's probably talking about Baltimore. We're gonna have rain in Baltimore.
Also, yeah, he was the one who called you, or he or she called you Red Rocket. So
I'll take that as a compliment.
You know this person, Chris?
Yeah, I know them.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. And Chris is a DJ, so he's probably referring to him. Or Chris used to be a DJ who does it on the side still.
Still am, baby.
Still am. See, so he must be talking about him. But my take is I'm going to be pulling for the Lions. You guys covered it all. Me pulling for the Lions, obviously one of those 12 teams that haven't won a Super Bowl. But in the end, I think it's going to be close. What'd you say the spread was? 7.5?
7, I think.
So I don't think they cover. So I think the Niners win, but they don't cover. Now let's move on.
The Niners don't cover.
The Niners don't cover. They
Dude,
win.
I'm betting alt spreads in that game. I'm taking like the Niners by 12 and 14. Like I think they are going to absolutely shellac the Lions.
Man.
All right, well, let's get into the biggest game and in my opinion, the best game, and in my opinion, the winner of this game takes down the Super Bowl. Just calling it right now. But Chris, your Ravens, man, probably the most balanced team I've seen in a long, long time. Great on defense, great on offense. You brought in Zay Flowers, which Jake is still sad to this day that you drafted Zay, and he's been a playmaker, a difference maker. You got Mark Andrews potentially coming back. I don't know. You tell us when I throw it over to you. Roquan Smith, you guys signed last year. I mean, your linebackers are incredible. I only could wish the Bills had linebackers like that. I know we do have Matt Milano. Don't get me wrong, Matt Milano is a stud, but your linebacking core is next level. So let me throw it to you on this game. I know who you're going to say is going to win, but talk a little more about what changes this team has made this year, aside from the ones I just mentioned, that have gotten to them to this elite level, and then tell me why they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers twice.
Well, so we ended the season losing to the Steelers. That's fine. Lamar didn't play. I will say, I'll spit a stat real quick. Lamar Jackson has lost 1 game since October 8th. So the Ravens are playing just outstanding football right now. Changes we made this season, I think it all falls on Lamar, right? I mean, we had the huge issue in the offseason with, do we franchise Lamar? What do we do? We took the strategy of, putting him out there, seeing if any other team would give us 2 first-round picks for him and kind of set the price for his long-term contract. No one bid. We didn't have anything to match. So we gave him a contract that we were comfortable with and that he was comfortable with. And I just see a completely different player. Just watching him mature has been really fun to watch. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like magical. The guy is so confident in himself that it's just really fun to watch. He's just like, ever since November, his answer to everything is, I don't know, I'm just really locked in right now. That's all he says. Locked in, locked in, locked in. And you can just see it through the way he plays. I mean, for the last 3-4 years, Lamar was kind of put in that brand of football that people talk about, Josh Allen, right? Backyard football, run and gun, scramble, make things happen. That's not Lamar Jackson at all this year. He is extremely safe and confident with the ball. I don't want to hear one more time that, he's a running back and he can't throw. The guy has every arm angle, every, arc of throw that there is. He's just absolutely ascended. He's so confident in himself, and it's really nice to see. So, I mean, that's kind of the main change that, I've seen is just him maturing into, a man and just really being confident in himself. And, Harbaugh loves him, and, their relationship is outstanding. So I love to see that. The next thing that really comes to mind is, just the weapons that the Ravens finally put around Lamar. We were talking about this on the Bills segment about, sometimes when you have like that amazing quarterback, kind of like you see also in KC this year with Mahomes, you kind of say, well, I don't need to spend resources on helping them out. Well, the Ravens knew they had a good quarterback with Lamar for the past 4 years, haven't really spent up on wide receiver, and it hurt. And this year they went out, they got Beckham, they drafted Flowers. Isaiah Likely is another year into his career. They signed Nelson Aguilar, who brings a deep threat, and Lamar's just absolutely thriving. So sometimes, even if you have a great quarterback, you still, not everyone's Tom Brady, right? You have to surround them with, A+ talent for them to really blossom. So that's the second thing I can think of. And the third thing is just one player, Kyle Hamilton. Guy is an absolute stud at strong safety. I think he is our secret weapon, and I'm pretty sure he's going to take on Kelsey. He's going to understand that assignment and be involved in just taking Kelsey out of Casey's game plan. But I'll stop talking for now and see what you guys think.
Yeah, hopefully he takes Kelsey out of the picture and doesn't leave him wide open like the Bills did in this past game. You want to answer real quick? You want to answer Amber? Amber either knows both of you or Tony, because he obviously said
Abner. Yeah, we know Abner. Yeah.
Okay, talk about Abner's question real quick. Speaking of our linebackers, how do you see Pacheco matching up with them, and what I think is one of the key battles Sunday?
Yeah, so I meant to bring this up in the Bills section. I think that the reason that Casey controlled that game and, I'm not going to say comfortably won, but, someone mentioned they looked comfortable and in control. Ed Oliver really didn't have a good game. And, you also were down to your third, fourth, fifth string linebackers. That's not the case in Baltimore, dog. I mean, we have Michael Pierce, who's an absolute house of a human. We have Justin Madubuike, who's a top 5 defensive tackle in football anymore. Yep. And then I don't think it's even up for debate. We have the best linebacker duo in the NFL, hands down. We have first team All-Pro Roquan Smith and second team All-Pro Patrick Queen. I know Pacheco is, running hot right now. I think that the way that the Ravens are constructed, we have big, unmovable bodies on the line. Jadeveon Clowney, also outstanding player against the run and setting the edge. With the way Roquan's just on a mission, Queen can fly. Hamilton is probably a top 3 box safety in the NFL. I just don't see Pacheco's success continuing. Is he going to get his 50 or 60 yards? Probably. But I don't see the Chiefs being able to control the game with Pacheco and then play off that with play action to Kelsey, play action to Rashee Rice. I don't think that's going to be the way this game goes. I think Mahomes is going to have to win it on its own.
All right, let me throw it to you, Tony, for your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to agree with Chris. I would say similar things when you look position by position across the board at the guys that are playing and then the units as a whole. I just think the Ravens are so much better. To me, it's 6 6 between Mahomes and Lamar at this point in time. There's no question Mahomes is probably the GOAT. He's unbelievable, but I'm talking about the microcosm of this season. And to Chris's point, he's been unbelievable. He's a different guy than he was. And I think that's probably about as square as it gets when you're comparing two quarterbacks. But I just think the Ravens are a much better team. I think that you're buying into the narrative, just similar to the same perspective that I had with Detroit. I think a lot of people are buying the KC narrative. You watch the Ravens kind of come out flat in the first half of that game. Houston was able to do a lot of things that people are like, there's no way Houston's going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. They did it. The Ravens made the adjustment and absolutely embarrassed Houston in the second half of that game. And I just think the Ravens are that good. I do think it's a closer ball game because of the fact that Casey's been there. They know what it takes to win. They have all those elements. But I look at this team and the Ravens are built to win. They are built to win a Super Bowl. And I just think it's a nail biter. I still like the Ravens giving up 3.5 in this game. So for me, it's the Ravens or nothing in this game.
What's the over on that game?
That's a good question. Here, I could tell you.
And Chris, real quick, before I throw it to Jake, if Harbaugh loses this game, you firing him? I mean, Rick said he's going to ask for his job. I saw it in the group chat.
There is a less than 0% chance that John Harbaugh gets fired.
3.5, Mike. It's Ravens by 3.5,
Wow.
and they are the home team, which typically the home team gets 2.5 to 3 points. So realistically, they're saying on a neutral field, this is basically a pick 'em, and I don't see it that way.
Okay, and what's
Dude,
the over?
I was at the game, the Texans game, and pretty much every interview that they did with Ravens players and coaches after the game, they all, in their 3 minutes of interview they had, mentioned the crowd noise. Dude, you could not have a conversation with the person next to you. It was absolutely deafening in that stadium. And that was when it was 5 degrees outside, freezing cold, and we're playing the damn Texans. I can only imagine how great this is. The first AFC Championship game held in Baltimore in 53 years. This place is going to be nuts. I think it's a little bit of, I think it's slightly disrespectful that this line's only 3.5. I think 4.5 is where I thought it was going to be, which is, it doesn't sound like a lot, but the difference between 4.5 and 3 is like miles, right? When talking betting spreads. So what's the over under, Tony?
It's at 44.5 right now in my book. So, that seems maybe a little soft. I think the San Francisco game's high at 51. I think this game might be a little bit soft, but again, you mentioned the weather conditions that could have a massive impact on scoring and defense and everything else. So I think
you want to hear a crazy stat I heard, and why the over under is probably only 44.5. So they think the final score is going to be 24-20 Ravens, essentially.
Yep.
The Kansas City Chiefs haven't given up over 27 points all year.
It's
And
crazy.
I think in today's NFL, when shootouts are quite common, especially when you play the brand of football that the Chiefs play, I thought that was kind of a crazy stat. So the Chiefs defense is better than most people think. I believe the Ravens have number 2 defense in the league, and the Chiefs are like number 3 or number 4. So they're right there. But yeah, I want to hear Mike's take too, where he's leaning.
Well, I'll go to Jake first. I'm just looking at the weather here for Sunday and trying to see if it is as crazy as
Mid 40s and rain, low 40s and rain.
Yeah,
Shorts weather, baby.
I know, right? It's comfortable. But I'm just trying to see if there's any wind, and 12 miles an hour, so nothing crazy with the wind. I mean, we've seen a lot of rain games this year, and Josh Allen played fantastic in rain games. It didn't seem to affect
Sure did.
him whatsoever. So, Jake, let me throw it to you first on this game and your thoughts.
I'm going to tell you why the Chiefs will cover, but they're not going to win this game, okay? So first off, you talk about a rowdy environment, Chris, okay? They're going from Bills Mafia, which is arguably the most rowdy environment you could ever be a part of. According to my sources, the decibel levels were 100 plus at all times during that game last week. They're going from that to Baltimore, which, it's probably loud, but not the same level. I saw a video of people showing a Ravens tailgate, and they're like, it's raining, but the tailgate's still on. No offense to you guys. I love you guys. I have a ton of respect for Ravens Nation, but we know something about tailgating. We know a thing or two about that, right? And then we know a thing or two about making an environment uncomfortable for an opposing team. So the fact that Pat Mahomes was able to come in and essentially be unfazed from Bills Mafia, Travis Kelce catching 2 tuds, putting up the heart to entire Bills Mafia Nation. It was tough to watch. That's why I do think that they are going to be poised. And everyone talked about Pat Mahomes not being able to, first playoff game on the road against the Bills. Now it's a second playoff game against you guys and an AFC championship. First non-home AFC championship appearance. He's a seasoned veteran with this. This is their 6th straight AFC championship. So I think they're going to play you guys tough. I do think you guys have more depth and just overall better players at the end of the day. And that's why you're going to win this game. I think it's going to be a 20-17 game. So not only am I saying the Chiefs are going to cover, but I'm saying that the under is going to hit, which is totally unlike me because life is way too short to bet the under. I hate betting the under, but I'm actually going to bet the under on this one. I just feel like it's going to be one of those things where it's going to look like it's going to be a high-scoring game. It might be like 13-13 at half, and you're like, wow, the over's definitely going to hit here. Or maybe it's 17-17. I don't know. And then the second half, it's going to be a lot of controlling the clock and, running this and that and other. And here's why you guys are going to win this game, Chris. First off, the Bills had the right game plan. I feel like running the football, out physicaling the team, running clock. We did a great job of that in the first half and really the first 3 quarters, I would say. Then it became null in the fourth quarter. I feel like you guys just have a better, you're a better built team for that. You can outlast them. So I feel like at the end of the day, you're going to out physical them. And I think the run game, obviously with the Ravens, that's what you guys are known for. But you made a very good point. Lamar Jackson, man, this year out of any year, I have seen him become a prolific pocket passer. This dude is patient. He's calm. He's cool. He's collected. He's not bailing immediately. Like, that says a lot about him because that was like one of his biggest critiques, I feel like, throughout his career. And he makes clutch throws when he needs to. And you guys have a kid, Isaiah Likely. I don't know if Mark Andrews is going to play in this game. Do you guys have, first off, you talk about the Chiefs having great tight ends, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, maybe two of their arguably greatest tight ends in NFL history, right? Talk about the Ravens string of tight ends. Start with Brian Douglas Kinchin back in 96, a guy who converted from long snapper to tight end, has a 580-yard season in 96. Then you go from him to Eric Green. Then you go from Eric Green to Shannon Sharp, then Shannon Sharp to Todd Heap, who, by the way, one of my favorite players of all time. We talked about this before the show. Todd Heap to Dennis Pitta, from Dennis Pitta to Dallas Clark, from Dallas Clark to I don't know. Or was it Dallas Clark before? I don't know. Whatever. You got Mark Andrews now. You got Isaiah Likely. Do you guys just have unlimited luck at the tight end position? It's unbelievable.
Who was our longtime GM?
Eric DeCoster. Well, before Ozzie Newsome.
Tight end.
That makes
There you
sense.
go.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It makes a ton of sense. God, it's amazing. You think about it, man. You guys have the weapons offensively. You have great receivers. You have a great tight end core. Your running backs, you could just switch in and out. Gus Edwards, Gus Bus, guy's unbelievable. Keaton Mitchell no longer with the team right now, right?
That would have
Obviously,
been
but
fun.
the tough blow. If he was, my gosh, could you imagine? Justice Hill, though. You guys just Patrick Ricard. Let's talk about him a little bit. This dude, one of the most athletic players in the NFL. Yeah, I envy you a little bit because I think you guys
cool
have
story
a team.
about how you said, Bills kind of controlled the running game the first 3 quarters
Yeah.
and then it went null.
Yeah.
Ravens kind of did that, and then they put a certain someone in the game the fourth quarter, and he got his first career carry for the Ravens in the fourth quarter against the Texans and ripped one off for 23 yards. Mr. Dalvin Cook still has some fresh legs, and
there we go.
Really excited to see him get more into the game plan. We just have an embarrassment of weapons this year to the point where, the way we're playing the last 3 months, the amount of weapons we have on offense and defense, the depth, like you said, Jake, it's like, This has got to be it, right? I mean, I'm sitting here and like Mark Andrews might play, might not play. I'm not even really
even worried. Yeah.
Marlon Humphrey, same way. Marlon Humphrey hasn't played in 6 weeks or something, and it's like, I don't know. I don't even know if I really care. We're talking about 2, perennial Pro Bowlers here, and we're just playing so good right now. I just would hate to upset the cart,
Yeah, I feel that. No, I think you guys. It's going to feel a lot more dominant than the score indicates, but I do feel like you guys will come away with it no matter what. But I'm gonna say the Chiefs will cover. And the under's going to hit, just to be a little different.
All right. So for me,
I would say this, Mike, before we launch.
Yeah.
One of the biggest difference, and you guys both talked about it, Lamar this year, like where Lamar struggled historically was against pressure. He was one of the worst quarterbacks versus the blitz, which is what Spagnuolo does. Like Spags brings pressure at a higher rate than any other defense coordinator in the NFL. Lamar Jackson this year has been absolutely fantastic against the blitz. He's been the highest rated quarterback against the blitz over the last 9 weeks. Something changed, to Chris's point, in how he approaches the game and how he sees things and reacts. And if you're telling me he's the best quarterback against the blitz and the Chiefs love to blitz, that's a recipe where he could have just a massive game.
Yep. I agree.
All right. Well, my story, right? Jonah, my 11-year-old, plays Madden football. Lamar Jackson was on the cover, and he was unstoppable in Madden, right? So I have a son who is a Raven fan. And as much as I've tried to bring him over to the other side, the Bills are I convinced him because I said, Josh Allen is on the cover. Can the Bills be your team this year? He said, yeah, Dad, the Bills will be my team this year. But the only way they're going to stay my team is if Josh Allen wins the MVP or the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl. So that's not happening. He's going to continue to be, Ravens going to be his top team. But he always said, yeah, Dad, I'll be a Bills fan this year, but Lamar Jackson's my favorite player. So I respect it. Okay, my son, it hurts a little bit, but I got to let him be him. But I'm going to say this, I got to give the Chiefs a little love. On paper, there is no reason you guys this game should even be close. Your defense and your offense, like I use a tool called PFF, Pro Football Focus. They light up the board, man, everywhere, both sides of the ball, offense and defense. Green. It's like Christmas looking at that, the PFF grading for your team. Fantastic. But you're going against Patrick Mahomes, who is, according to Rick, he's already making the call, the best quarterback to ever have played. Now, a lot of people may disagree with that. We had that conversation. We went back and forth. But Rick has said that. Your guy, Chris, I mean, you've heard him say it. I know you have. And the Chiefs, again, 6 AFC championships in a row. They had it difficult this year. Everyone's saying he's never playing on the road. This is the year they're vulnerable. And you saw what they did to the Buffalo Bills. I think Patrick Mahomes' legacy continues. And this is a guy that could potentially be probably the only guy that might have a chance to beat Tom Brady's records. I'm going to give this is going to be a close one, but I'm going to give the Chiefs. I'm pulling for you guys, Chris. I'm pulling for you guys, Rick, and I'm pulling because of my son. But I got to say, I'm going to call the upset here, the Chiefs, just because of Mahomes' experience, because I do believe he is maybe I agree with Rick, not fully there. I'm not fully there that he's the best of all time, but he's special. Kelsey, special. He has Valdez, who he won with last year. He has a better second receiver. He has Rasheed Rice, who's been getting hot at the end of the season. He has that weapon. Their defense is legit. This is one difference for the Chiefs this year. While the offense struggled, they were able to rely on their defense. I do believe that defense will give Lamar trouble. And Lamar has something to prove to me. I mean, I think he is the MVP. He could have 2 MVPs, but it means nothing if he doesn't win this game. And, we've seen Lamar in big games. Obviously, he got to win. But let's face it, he played a team that they should have got a win against. And at halftime, it was tied. I mean, are you saying that's because of the rust? Probably. But again, I think Patrick Mahomes, I think Andy Reid, I think they continue this dynasty and they get a win. And then we're talking about Lamar Jackson not being able to win the big games, just like we are with Josh Allen. By the way, can you tell me, have they played each other? How many times they played and what the outcomes have been so far between Jackson and Mahomes?
Good question.
I don't know their head-to-head record. I know Lamar won the last one, which was last year. Let me find it. Hold on. I'm actually impressed we made it this far in the podcast without talking about Taylor Swift, so I'm just going to say it.
Here we go. Hey, by the way, have you guys seen?
Do you guys think the fix is in?
I was just going to say, have you seen that whole thing with the colors of the logo, that it's 49ers, Ravens, no matter what, basically? Like,
Yep.
I refuse to believe that. Tony, you played college ball. There's no freaking way. Like, I feel like as a player, unless you are really that low of a human being and like the worst competitor of all time, that you're going to allow something like that to take place. It just doesn't happen. Like, if anything, you're cheating to win. Like, I mean, that's crazy to me. I just don't feel like.
Well, I would say this.
No way.
I did hear this the other day, so it's not an original thought, and I can't take credit for it, but I don't know where I heard it. But the designers of the Super Bowl logos, right? So when they put them together, there's an element with the city that hosts, which is why you've got this backdrop of Las Vegas in the letters of the Super Bowl. But then the designers of the colors, the color options they have to choose from are dictated by someone in the league who runs analytics that says these are the 2 teams that are most likely to make it to the Super Bowl. That project started like 5 or 6 years ago. And if you look, the conspiracy theory is based off of the last 3 Super Bowl logos where the colors of the teams that have played have matched the logos. And where the guy was spouting this off, he was saying it's because they're running analytics and saying these are the teams that are most likely to get there. If you look, red is one of the most common colors used by teams in the NFL. But that's what it has to do with, is that they're making a bet up front on what they think the teams are going to look like and who's going to be into the Super Bowl. And it just happened to be the 2 best teams. I think going into the season, I think people thought the Ravens and the 49ers were probably the favorites to win. So it's just one of those things that happen. So I'm not buying the conspiracy theory, but I do think there may be somebody who's running analytics before the season to be like, it should be red and blue this year, or black and green, or whatever the case may be.
What's the colors this year?
Purple and red.
So I think somebody told me that, and I said, you know what it takes to make color? Make purple, blue, and red, and that's the Bills. So that's what I was hanging my hopes on.
Nice.
But it didn't pan out, man.
Man.
Well, I mean, you got it the other way. You got Detroit, and you could say Detroit and KC. Red and blue makes purple.
True. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Good stuff there. So, yeah, we got some new folks out there, and there he is. Here he is. Wait until the
There he
last
is, the
minute.
man.
Rick, where you been? What up, fellas? I just became free. Excited to hear the whole show. See you this weekend, Chris. When does Rick fly out?
I think he gets here late Friday night, and then we'll be hanging out Saturday all day, and then definitely Sunday all day, and hopefully party until the sun comes up Sunday night. Let's
Hey,
go.
you guys got to send some pictures and videos from
Oh,
the
yeah.
celebration.
Yeah, for sure.
So to save you a little time, Rick, if you're doing a rewatch and you want to hear us talk about McDermott and give your thoughts, it's the first hour of the show. After that, we get into Championship Sunday. And I know Rick, I'm going to share Rick's thoughts here. Give me a sec, because he did. I wanted to get his opinion on the Sean McDermott thing. And
While you're finding that, Mike,
yeah, go ahead.
3-1 record for Lamar against Patrick Mahomes. The last meeting, was that the game where John Harbaugh just told Lamar, he's like, all right, it's up to you, Lamar. You do what you want. Basically, like Lamar looked over to John and they went for it or something like that.
No,
Am
that
I
wasn't. That
recalling
was
that right?
that
What was
was
that
in that was in Seattle. I was actually at that game.
Okay.
That was it was like a rain game in Seattle, and it was like
Yeah,
their
that's right.
famous interaction where what'd they do? It was either like a 4th and goal or a 2-point conversion, and Harbaugh, Lamar like takes his helmet off all mad and walks to the sideline, and John goes, Hey, you want to go for it? And he goes, hell yeah, coach, I want to go for it. And he like throws his helmet back on and just runs back in. It fires me up.
What a moment, man. I love Lamar. By the way, I feel like he just doesn't. It's crazy because like Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, I feel like have been like the face of the league this year. Like they've gotten the most headlines, right? Lamar, I just feel like still kind of just under the radar.
He
I don't know.
doesn't make
Something
himself
weird.
available for sponsors and whatnot. He's like Captain Do Your Own Thing, right?
Yeah.
He's a private person. I don't know. He's not the best communicator, really. He's soft spoken. He's not really.
He's not marketable. And from a business guy's perspective, he's a difficult guy to market, right? To your point, he wears. I swear, I don't think I've seen him play a game where he doesn't have like the pseudo ski mask on his face, which is not a good look. Ask Kadarius Toney. That's not a good look.
Yeah, no swag.
Yeah.
No swag about it.
He just
Except
is.
for draft day.
He's soft spoken. He doesn't say anything controversial. He just kind of is like whatever. He doesn't want the limelight. He lets the play speak for himself, which is all great things, but it's a very difficult thing for the league to market. And he plays in Baltimore, which if they win, Baltimore's not a massive market, but if they win, Kansas City's proven like you can win anywhere and make that mass market. But if he was in New York or LA or even Dallas, I think he would have a lot more publicity. But because he plays in Baltimore, which is a smaller market team, and he's not a dynamic, charismatic personality, he just doesn't get the love, to your point, Jake.
I love that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. You look at the teams playing in Championship Sunday. 3 of those teams, really small market teams outside of San Francisco, like Baltimore, Kansas City, Detroit. I mean, not really, you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking. And I know Baltimore and Kansas City have been successful, but it's like the teams you're looking at here. It's kind of cool to see. I don't know. I mean, I wish Buffalo was in it, of course, but.
Do you think Goodell wants a Taylor Swift versus Eminem Super Bowl?
Oh, for sure he does. He's licking his chops over it. Man, I would
impromptu halftime show, right?
That would be wild, actually.
I think
That'd
Taylor
be kind of cool.
Swift is going to be given the halftime show. I know they announced Usher, right?
Usher.
Isn't Usher doing it? So he's going to have a special guest join him. It's going to be Taylor. By the way, I don't know what you said as far as the Mahomes matchup with Lamar, but it's Mahomes has a 3-1 record.
1-3. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, Mahomes is 3-1 against them. So, but they haven't played since 2021. And the last time Lamar won, but look at that score, 36-35 shootout. Crazy.
Yeah.
Let me give you Rick's take. I know we're past the McDermott thing, but I did say I was going to share this, and I should have shared it earlier, and he reminded me when he got on there. So, again, he has a slightly different opinion on coaching, as I mentioned earlier in the show. But Rick says, as far as moving on from McDermott, I think I would. I have the same thinking as Jake. Maybe Jake's got a little different thought now. I think having an offensive-minded young coach is what you need. Someone like a Ben Johnson, we heard that name earlier, would be an absolutely great head coach for the Bills, I believe. Doesn't matter how many times you get to the playoffs when you are a well-run organization. You need someone to get you over the hump. We're about to find out if Harbaugh can finally get us over the hump and win a Super Bowl without Ray Lewis. Great take there.
Wow.
I mean, you won it with Joe Flacco, and you had Ray Lewis. Was Ed Reed still playing?
Anquan Bolden. No respect for Anquan Bolden. How good of a playoff run did Anquan
One
Bolden
of the most underrated
Come
receivers of all time.
So
He
good.
was-
I love
He was
Anquan.
so good.
Minus the fact that he retired with the Bills in the preseason, and that's how he ended his career.
Where'd he go?
That's just tough.
Baltimore Niners, then Bills? Is that what that was?
Yeah. No, Lions too. The Lions. He had like 8
Lions,
touchdowns
too?
with them too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he finished his career. Yep. Wore number 80 out of respect for Calvin Johnson too. He said, I'm not taking 81, I'm gonna take 80.
There's
Crazy.
another name, dude. Calvin Johnson. Jesus.
No,
Oh,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him and Randy Moss, dude, like
I
the
know.
freak shows of all time.
It's crazy. Yeah.
He retired way too early. He could have done some serious damage.
Mm-hmm. What's up
All
with
right.
Detroit and people retiring early?
I was gonna say
Yeah.
most
Johnson,
Lions
Barry
do.
Sanders, right?
Yeah.
All the good guys, they're like, we're never going to win a championship here, so I'm out. That's how that
Yeah.
works.
Well, they have sat out a year and signed with another team. I don't know what the rule is there, but didn't happen. Comedian Mo Brown chiming in late here. He says, Ravens lose to the Chiefs. So interesting. Golf.
Wow.
Oh, Goff. He likes golf.
Jared
right?
Goff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get this twisted too. Like Jared Goff has had a phenomenal year, and I'll say this: I think Ben Johnson's helped him a lot. Obviously, he's got 2 very good running backs that have also helped, and he's got weapons. But I think he's taken a step this year. I feel like he's not getting enough credit for how good he's played.
Well, I mean, I think that's a perfect example of like having the right guy in the right system. Like the reason the Rams
True.
got rid of him was not because Jared Goff was trash. It's because he wasn't the right guy for their system. They bring in
Yeah.
the right guy, they win a championship. And I think what the Lions have shown that if you're willing to build an offense around a guy like Goff, and again, he's not an elite talent, but he's better than, probably 20 other guys in the league, that you can go very far if you have a system that works. I mean, Brock Purdy in San Francisco is another example of that. You have to have that marriage of quarterback talents and a system that supports what he does well and minimizes his downfalls. And not to go back to the McDermott thing, that is another glaring example. Allen's a stud, but the system they run accentuates his mistakes 100%.
That's fair,
Tony.
That's very well put.
I'm a little bit warming on you, making that point, because I'll go back, and it's not a head coach situation; it's a coordinator versus. You'll get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator for the Ravens for how many years? 3-4 years, and some would say they went together like apple pie and ice cream. Right? We have the best running quarterback in the NFL. Lamar Jackson won an MVP under Greg Roman, but Greg Roman just leaned into what Lamar was good at and just rode it, right? That we had the number 1 rushing offense year after year after year, but he never attempted to let him level up, right? So we get rid of Greg Roman. Todd Monken comes in year 1 and just says, yeah, we're not running any of those 3 tight end sets anymore with, you're going to become pocket passer and you're going to fling the ball all over the yard. And that's what happened. But now in the playoffs, when Lamar needs to run, probably 2 of our biggest plays in the game were naked bootlegs where Lamar is just wide open. So running free. So I think maybe that's similar-ish to the McDermott thing where, he's kind of just riding what's working, but not attempting to level up Josh.
I mean, I love the analogy, and I think the changeover that they've had at the coordinator and at the position coach level, they've had a lot of turnover, especially the last couple of years. So again, I hear what you're saying, and if they can get the right OC in there to work with him, like maybe that will change it. But ultimately, your GM and your head coach, they dictate what happens, and it falls on their head at some point in time.
We come full circle on the McDermott
I know. I'm
conversation.
back there. I know. I'm passionate about it.
Well, you're passionate. We're all
I love it.
passionate. So,
How about comedian Mo Brown though? Throwing
you
some
see?
shade on Lamar. We
Haymakers
just
on the
talked about
Ravens
this.
over there.
I don't know, man. Listen, I disagree. I mean, Chris could probably vouch for this better, obviously, and Rick. But this dude, I think this year has taken one of the biggest steps of becoming like that passing quarterback that everyone wanted to mold him into.
Jake,
Todd
the
Monken.
year that the first time he won MVP, he's going to win MVP again this year. The first time he won MVP, he led the NFL in touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Not touchdown total. Touchdown
That's pretty
passes.
wild. Yeah.
Okay. He's not a running back. And if you've watched one half of a Ravens football game this year, which this guy obviously hasn't, he doesn't run anymore. He only runs if it's absolutely necessary. And, you know, he's extremely good at it. And it's, I feel like he's almost like saving it.
Yeah.
That's
He doesn't
just
get enough credit.
That's a garbage comment that he's a running back.
CMB,
Yeah, I don't agree, comedian. Mo Brown. I love
he's
you,
been
man.
we've seen CMB quite a bit.
Snoop Huntley is better than Lamar Jackson.
He's got
all right.
something.
Come on.
I think it's time to end the show. Boy,
I will
Yeah.
say Snoop Huntley, very good backup quarterback. I like him a lot.
nah, man.
He's a Pro
He ain't
Bowler,
it.
by the way. He's a Pro Bowler. Put some
He is.
respect on his
Yeah.
name.
Get out
But
of here.
That was
Come
sad.
on.
That was.
I mean,
sad.
there's a reason.
Come on now.
Comedian. He's got to be a little funny, right? So I think he's being a little funny. We're getting the best of him tonight.
He's not Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's a freaking downhill runner. He's going to run into you. Like, he's a guy. Listen, I know Lamar put some weight on to, like, absorb the contact a little bit better, but no, not at all.
All right, guys.
I
Well,
love
listen,
Snoop.
we're
I
at
love
2
Snoop.
hours, and I appreciate all your time. This has been a fun show. It's great to be on a pod with you guys again. You're part of Nickel City Mafia. You guys do different shows, but we don't get together often. So appreciate all your time tonight. Appreciate everyone out on the channel. If you're watching, you're new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, drop a nickel on that subscribe button for us. We truly appreciate it. Jake and I, we go live every Wednesday and Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, as you see right there on the graphic. Tony, when's your next golf show? Is that going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday? I never know what
It
you
will be
guys.
early in the week next week, Mike, at some point.
All right.
I'm assuming it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday. A lot of it depends on Rick and I's schedule, but either Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll go live for the Pebble Beach, which is an elevated event with a great field, and it'll be a good show.
A lot of viewers have been hitting me up on the side, texting me saying, can these guys go live 2 days before the tournament? They're going live like late at night, the night before the tournament. It absolutely does me no good.
I
Can
hear
you
you.
please help that situation?
I hear you. Well, I mean, part of the problem is we've got a congested freeway of shows, and the football shows take precedence. So we're happy to sit in the back row and get our opening when we can, even if that's the night before.
By the way, I did want to say one good point that comedian Mo Brown makes, and we didn't talk about it. Mahomes can run when he has to. He can get out of trouble. He's sneaky quick, and he can make plays with his legs as well. So that'll be interesting. I don't think he's going to outrush him, but who knows? There was a game, I don't think it was this year, maybe it was, or last year when we played the Chiefs. Not last year, but when we played the Chiefs, that he outrushed Josh. It was one of those games.
Yeah.
It was pretty.
And our
pretty-
running backs. So,
yeah. So watch out for him. Jason Day killed me, Tony. So yeah, let's not get into golf right now.
Abner wants to talk
Tony,
golf. Abner, we'll
please.
get
I
together
love
this
it.
summer.
Get the show out earlier. There's lots of other shows. Chris will probably have another. Chris and Tony will probably have another one talking about the Super Bowl. So this was fun. Maybe we can get Rick to join us that time.
Tony, you want to do Super Bowl prop bets?
Yeah.
Show?
Oh,
We
dude,
gotta
I'd
do
love
it.
to. I love Super Bowl prop
Yeah,
bet.
that would be fun.
Hell
So
yeah.
let's
That
do that,
market is
guys.
so fun to bet.
All right, guys. You guys have a good one. Everyone out in the channel, thank you. Take care.
Hey,
Good night.
go Bills.
Go Bills. Go Ravens. Go Ravens. What's, by the way, did they have a chant? Did they say RAVENS Ravens? Like, what's the thing in
Yeah,
Baltimore?
so original. It's wild.
Is it?
Yeah. Is it like that what it is? They just spelled the name out?
All right, are we still live?
Yeah, we
All
are.
right,
live.
yeah, I'll explain. So we're very unoriginal when it comes to chants. So we go RAVENS Ravens, but it's this big fat dude that is in the upper deck front row, and he like rips his shirt off and like slams it on the ground, and then he like spells it out like a cheerleader. It's actually pretty pathetic.
Isn't that the same thing the Jets do? Don't they do the same
They
thing?
do
with the
JETS, Jets. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's slightly different.
It's
Slightly
like
different.
Fireman
I realize
Ed from the
it's a different
Jets,
word,
but
it's
it's
the
like
same thing,
some,
man, like
Yeah.
Fireman Joe.
fat dude. Yeah.
All right, I had to find out. Sorry. See you, everybody. Take care.
Hey, go Bills.